Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Previously, we wrapped up the second and most likely final investigation phase in the third case of the second game. And that brings us back to court. So, we apprehended Enoch Drebber. He's a very interesting individual, and I can't wait to get a better look inside his head and see what makes him tick. Haha, pun. Because he's clockwork man. Yeah. Well, yeah, so he kind of left behind a time bomb in the faked kinesis machine, and it exploded at the site of the Great Exhibition. At the very least, I would assume that the policemen standing near it at the time it went off are freaking dead. So there's no question that Enoch Drebber is going to jail. Like, come on, it'd be ridiculous if he didn't. But I'm hoping that we can prove that he's the real killer of Odie Asman and completely absolve Hairbrain here, so let's work towards that. Good morning to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Good morning, Professor. Ready for today's proceedings? I hope so. I should be. Even I, with nothing to... Good morning, my dear fellows. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you're here. Why, naturally. A true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll see you later, then. Oh, is he leaving? I think he left. Now, Professor, we really need you to remain calm in the courtroom today. Yes, do try your hardest not to enter the witness stand uninvited again. Yes, I will. I realize it was a mistake, but my dear fellows, I must interject. Oh, we were ignoring him. Oh, you're still here, Mr. Sholmes? What's the matter? Surely you've overlooked some praise, have you not? To be cast in my direction, Sorry? I don't follow. Must I spell it out? I, the great Herlock Sholmes, the greatest detective of worldwide acclaim, arose at some ungodly hour to be here now. First thing in the morning, a miracle, you must agree. Well, if I must agree, then... As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full gamut of tactics. She pulled the covers off, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched me, and kicked me from the bed. Then she poured a boiling cup of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was bestirred. Wow. That's messed up. Boiling liquid does not fuck around. Don't pour boiling liquids on people. That's how you scar them for a long time. Maybe for life. Oh my, Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice. Yeah, he's probably exaggerating. I sense the spirit of a fellow scientist, one who relishes the infinite possibilities of blending tea. I'm the one worthy of praise here, not Iris. This is my victory. Sorry to cut in? Who? Gregson. Oh, Inspector Gregson. Good morning. Gregson, my dear fellow. Why the grim expression at this delightfully early hour? Weren't you just... Oh, never mind. Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I've been confronted with a grimmer expression, eh? Dear me, are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor? What? I don't know! Poor Professor. Anyway, here's the paperwork you asked for. What paperwork? I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling it may prove useful. You wouldn't believe the hoops I had to jump through to get this brought out of the archives. It's the professor's autopsy report. Oh. That mass murderers. Who killed 5 members of the aristocracy. He was found guilty in a closed trial 10 years ago now. It was all done under wraps. And he was quickly executed soon after the trial. It's all in here. The killer's autopsy report has been entered into the court record. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Inspector. Yes, much obliged, Gregson. Us lowly lot at the yard are just doing what we can, in the shadow of the great Detective Sholmes, of course. That dry British wit. Okay, let's have a look-see at that autopsy report. I'm very interested in this. Let's see. His name redacted for confidentiality. Pseudonym The Professor. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight on the 17th of June by Courtney Stevens. Wait. Oh! Alright, Courtney Scythe must have married and changed her name. That explains it. There's a reason that name is Courtney. It has to be. Well, that's how she gets linked into all this mess. Oh, boy. We already looked at this, didn't we? No, I don't think we did. This lock does look very strong, doesn't it? There's definitely no way you could remove the mask yourself it was put on you. What a terrible way to treat someone, even a convicted criminal. I know. It's starting to make me livid, actually. Mr. Naruhodo, please. I mean, just think about it. Imagine if you had an itch on your cheek all of a sudden. You'd be utterly helpless. Well, yes, that's true. But I'm not sure that warrants quite so much anger. Oh, right. Sorry. Ugh. Well then, Professor Hairbrain, this is it. Today we're going to lay all this to rest at last. I wish you the best of luck, Professor. I suppose he'll be in there today, will he? Drebber. Yes, we expect the prosecution to summon him as a witness. I'm still amazed that you managed to find him in just one day. I really owe you both so much. Counsel and the defendant. The trial is about to resume. Kindly make your way into the courtroom at once. Here we go. This is it then, the final chapter. Funny, my heart's racing a little. I think there are 2 more to go. I've not felt this before, actually, this strange foreboding. As if something's going to happen in this trial that I'm not ready for. But I can't let that distract me from the only thing that really matters. Finding the truth. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the public hearing of Albert Hairbrain, here present, who stands accused of murder. Are the counsels for the prosecution and defense ready to proceed? The prosecution is ready, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. As promised, Lord Van Zieks has his apprentice with him. His apprentice with memory loss. If I may, Lord Van Zieks. Yes, my lord. There appears to be someone standing at your side. Ah, yes, my apprentice and assistant. The prosecution believes today's proceedings will see the complexity of this case rise considerably. Okay. Alright. I therefore instructed my assistant to attend to ensure the smooth running of the trial. And the smooth running of liquid refreshments, by the look of it. The way he holds himself, the way he moves. It couldn't be anyone else. But he's still suffering from amnesia, so there's really nothing we can do at the moment. I know, but... oh, this is so very hard. It would appear the prosecution has done a fine job in responding to the demands of the court made yesterday. I understand you have successfully secured the engineer who disappeared from the scene on the day in question. Yes, my lord. I intend to call him as a witness shortly. Very good, very good. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this courtroom today, are you ready and willing to proceed? Of course, my lord. I'm sure we all understand the importance of doing our civic duty. I do so despise deception and deceit. I find it so very wearing. To take a man's life with a conjuring trick, it is against the magician's code, not to mention the law. Any fake scientist should feel the wrath of God, if you ask me. We have to listen to what's said on both sides of the fence and, then settle on one? That's it, isn't it? Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all. If all parties are ready to proceed, you may begin, Lord Van Zieks. Before I do, my lord, there is a report I must read to the court. Yesterday, at the Great Exhibition Grounds, the evidence of primary importance in this case, the super-high-voltage instantaneous kinesis machine, which was installed on the experimentation stage, was deliberately destroyed in an explosion affected by an unknown person or persons. It was what? An explosion? This is an outrage. Yes, I heard this grave news yesterday. Scotland Yard submitted a report to my office in the evening. I read that the machine was blasted to smithers and the wreckage reduced to ashes in the flames. I have here a photographic print of the scene taken in the wake of the explosion. Aha! Proof that the thing collapses downwards. There's a chamber underneath. It shows what little remains of the machine. Yes, a terrible business. He did it to destroy the evidence, did he? That Enoch Drebber. The court will take this print as evidence, counsel. Now, usually you can't find anything to actually, investigate on these, images. It's just magnifying glass. Yeah, nothing to say here, just that it's proof that the inner chamber is a thing that exists below the stage. Compare it to... oh. I actually don't have a photo of the... Okay, never mind. Late yesterday afternoon, the protection afforded to the machine by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act was revoked. However, before a thorough investigation could begin, the invention was obliterated from existence. As such, this will become a very different trial. As it stands now, with no evidence on which to draw meaningful conclusions, the authenticity of the kinesis machine will remain forever in obscurity. Indeed, a most unfortunate state of affairs. However, one thing remains clear. The victim's death was the result of the actions of the accused. Of that we can be certain. For it was the accused himself who was operating the machine and who ultimately caused its loss of control.
Objection!
As Lord Van Zieks rightly says, this is a very different trial now. The accused accepts responsibility for his part in the events that transpired. He acknowledges that Mr. Asman died as a result of the accident caused by his machine's malfunction. However, unbeknownst to the professor, he was being deliberately deceived by a pair of very clever fraudsters. Names, counsel, if you please. The engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, and the victim himself, Mr. Odi Asman. So what exactly were these two men up to behind the defendant's back? The defense intends to expose that information, thus establishing the unequivocal innocence of the defendant. Thank you, counsels. The positions of the prosecution and defense have been clearly stated. Lord Van Zieks, summon your first witness, please. At once, my lord. The prosecution calls the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to the stand. State your name and occupation for the court. Name, Enoch Drebber. Occupation. Hard to pin down, I would say. See that black monocle? Yes, why do I feel as though I've seen it somewhere before? Oh, you too? I have had exactly the same feeling myself. Even the kid knows it? Your file indicates that you are currently being investigated in connection with another case. The theft of a waxwork model, is it? A most extraordinary sounding business. Yeah, so I guess there's no proof that he's tied to the explosion at the kinesis machine. I mean, he did let slip that very ominous statement, like, are you sure you found the only bomb? But we need hard proof. But that has no bearing on this trial, I assure you. Cleave it from your mind. You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Exhibition some days ago. The accused super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration. Yes, you could say that. I am aware of it. There was a terrible accident, wasn't there? It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine used in the experiment. Or so our investigations indicate. Can you confirm your involvement? Yes, I constructed it, in precise accordance with the blueprints, but that's all. Then the court would be very interested in to hear your thoughts about the machine, I'm sure. An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis a reality at last. What? Good gracious! Do you mean to say that the experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief, sir? Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew up.
Objection!
But we've already established the machine was nothing more than a prop for an elaborate conjuring trick.
Objection!
You've established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same outcome would have been produced by means of staged trickery. The defense merely proposed a method and demonstrated its feasibility, nothing more. But... We've procrastinated long enough, I feel. Witness, you will now give your formal testimony about the machine that you constructed for the purpose of the demonstration at the Great Exhibition. Understood. I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. A body double? That goes without saying, surely. To give the impression that something has moved when in reality it hasn't. It's a basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substituting the original with a fake at some point in the performance. Would I be right in saying you haven't managed to establish anything along those lines? Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed that Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. It's my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring artfulness. But such talents do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims. Namely, the construction of what, by all accounts, must have been an extremely complex scientific machine. Whatever do you mean? Yesterday's proceedings brought the true nature of your past exploits to light, Mr. Drebber. Indeed it did, my lord. As a swindler who preys on innocent scientists to elicit government grant money through conjuring know-how. Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic. But crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches that of any academic in the field. Investigation of the witness's workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found this Royal Society trophy for young talent and science there. Yes, that's true. We spotted it there ourselves. If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into a physical manifestation, with sufficient skill. Though I may have sold the secrets of some deceptive wiles to sniveling, talentless scientists in the past. Would you therefore assert that the explosion of the machine was an unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by misuse of the science? Counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. With pleasure. Oh, it's going to be satisfying to take this guy down. I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction. Hold it! So you were already acquainted with Mr. Asman himself? Not really. By chance, I'd seen his name mentioned in the papers, that's all. But I had no interest in his private affairs. If he was an unscrupulous investor, it was no concern of mine. As long as people pay their bills, I take up my tools and construct what they ask for. So why did Mr. Asman approach you in particular, then? Who can say? I presume because my name is associated with excellence in engineering. Not to mention excellence in fraud. Hard to gauge. But the point is, all I did was construct the machine according to the blueprints I was given. In other words, the kinesis machine was built on solid scientific principles. Yes, you might say that. Professor Hairbrain certainly has a mind like no other. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick.
Hold it!
It's clear that you have both scientific knowledge and a knowledge of conjuring magic, however. The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes along. But your implication is that I furnished the machine with some trickery, I think. It's a possibility that we have to explore. Unfortunately, though, the machine has been blown to Kingdom Come. So there's really nothing left to explore, is there? It appears that the kinesis machine was fitted with a timed explosive device of some kind. And there's nothing left of that device either. Not a single shred of evidence remaining, I hear. He must have planned all this from the outset. But in any case, it's abundantly clear that the experiment couldn't have been a trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin?
Hold it!
Of course, that's it! Mr. Asman has a twin. Or was a twin.
Objection!
Perhaps my learned friend wasn't listening earlier. Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. No, I heard you before, but the thread of hope hasn't quite left me. The demonstration could have been a trick if there was somebody who looked sufficiently like the victim. But Dr. Scythe absolutely ruled that out as a possibility. Also, I guess I should say, I'm spotting a smart white coat underneath that cloak. Looks neat. Though I can't help but realize the white that he's wearing is the complete opposite of the black school uniform we're familiar with. It is beyond question that the victim himself, Mr. Asman, did move from the stage to the Crystal Tower. The fingerprints found at the scene attest to the fact. So it can't have been orchestrated using someone who looked identical to Mr. Asman, then. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, no, nothing. Just that the idea of someone who looked identical to the victim is playing on my mind. All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the Crystal Tower.
Hold it!
It crashed headfirst, you say? According to the many witness reports from those that were at the time, yes. Were you not there at the exhibition grounds on the day? Huh. Unlikely. I rarely leave my workshop. Yet another of your unique inventions was found at the scene. Well, it was the unveiling of a machine I'd labored over for many months. I saw it clearly with my own eyes, the birdcage plummeting headfirst into the tower. You're changing your story? What a surprise. I believe the victim's neck was broken from the headlong fall, wasn't it? How would you have come by that information? Even an infernal recluse like me reads the newspapers, you know. According to the reports, 2 injuries were apparent on the victim's body. Yes, he'd been stabbed in the chest by a screwdriver believed to belong to the defendant. and he had broken vertebrae as a result of a fall from a considerable height. Correct. My learned friend has been doing his research, it seems. Do we know which injury was the fatal one? Sadly not. Forensic science is not yet at a level where such things can be determined. What we do know is that the victim died having sustained both injuries at some point during the experiment. And since he was found in the birdcage with his neck broken, it's obvious that he fell from a considerable height. I suppose that's hard to deny. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow.
Hold it!
So you understood the science, did you? Not in the slightest. Oh, right. As I've said a number of times, I'm an engineer. My job is to manufacture according to the blueprints I'm given. I would be inviting manifold problems if I foolishly allowed my brain to digest the ideas behind them. I could be accused of stealing those ideas, for example. But how is it possible to construct a machine without really understanding the principles it relies on? Well, you're practicing law without really understanding the principles it relies on, aren't you? Wow. A very good point. Stand up for yourself, Mr. Naruhodo. The point is, the experiment resulted in instantaneous kinesis taking place. As such, the science must be sound. Yes, and really, experimental results are all that matters when it comes to proving a hypothesis. He's certainly very sure of himself. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, now that the machine has been completely destroyed by yesterday's explosion, it's going to be impossible to argue its authenticity one way or the other. But if we're unable to establish that it was a piece of stage trickery rather than genuine science, we will have no grounds on which to demonstrate Professor Harebrain's innocence. Both Mr. Asman and this man in the stand tricked the professor and used him. They took advantage of his naivete and his unbending belief in his work, and I won't let them get away with it. And seeing as the professor is an old friend of Lord Van Zeek's, what on earth must he be feeling towards Drebber? Alright, so pressing didn't get us anything, but on one of the statements, on this one, required a body double. It's on this statement that Ryunosuke had a very serious thought, and I want to say this is what we can show evidence on. No living relative, but maybe a wax statue. So let's take everything one at a time here. Met the professor 1 year ago through Mr. Asman's introduction. Yeah, I think that's true, but do we have anything? I know that Professor Harebrain has told us quite a bit about how he first met these two. Yeah, I don't think there's anything about this. He provided me with the blueprints and I constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. Yeah, the blueprints were recovered from the fire. He attempted to burn them. He wants it hidden. But I don't think we have anything to counter this statement just yet. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? You stole a waxwork. You had possession of a body, and you didn't need the head. So that tells me you needed the head of the body double to look a specific way. But I feel like usually when you submit something as a contradiction, the evidence usually directly contradicts the text that they're saying. Usually. Not always, but usually. Let's see. All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. I'm thinking, but maybe I'm thinking too hard. I might just be overthinking it. Sir, you stole a wax statue.
Objection!
Crap! The defense would have to object to that last statement, my lord. And I would have to overrule your objection, counsel. The defense would have to accept the penalty given. Glad to hear it. And you would also have to think again. I feel stupid. Alright, so I really don't think there's anything wrong with this statement. 1 year ago, met the professor, harebrained. Oh. You constructed the machine to his precise specifications. It was no trick. No. I guarantee you, Harebrained did not care about a chamber beneath the whole thing. That would never be part of his plan. I think it's this one. I mean, this is a sketch, not the blueprints, but this shows a gaping hole in the floor. It's gotta be this.
Objection!
What? That last statement would seem to be at odds somehow with the evidence. It is your task, counsel, to explain the somehows to the court, not the other way around. It just seems to jar, though, don't you think? What I think is that the whole exchange has been extremely jarring, yes. Perhaps I need to reconsider this. What? Is there a way it could have happened without a body double? The spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads, then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. I mean, I guess you could call it emerging from the middle of the balloon. Up here. A terrible accident that I grant you, perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed. Alright, well, I think I've spent way too long on this already. I'm stumped, I am. Okay, time to look it up. Oh no. Okay, so I need to show evidence on this one. But... I don't think I looked at this, is the problem. Yeah, I never looked at this. I never looked at this, so I didn't... Okay, there's information here to glean. Alright, well, on one hand, I don't feel too bad for getting stuck on this because I never had the answer in my inventory in the first place just yet. On the other hand, if I had bothered to look at this when I frickin' got it, we wouldn't be here probably. Look here, Miss Usato. Oh, yes, the wood's cracked and broken a little. I suppose because it fell from such a height. Yes, from the height at which the balloon was flying down into the crystal tower below. A fall of about 30 feet, or 9 meters. Leaving the man inside tragically dead. Except no. The problem here is that the impact damage is at the bottom. Everything we've known so far has led us to believe that it was actually upside down, like so, and Aspen fell head first. This does not make sense, if that is true, so it's clearly a lie. Crash head first into the crystal tower.
Objection!
We've examined the birdcage that crashed into the crystal tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has sustained damage in one particular spot. Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet into the glass of the crystal tower. That level of damage is to be expected, surely. I agree. The damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of that damage. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top. What are you saying?
That's the opposite of where they should be.
That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the scene is damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the crystal tower, yet the damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two birdcages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switched during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of staged trickery. Gag!
Good gracious. Explain yourself, witness.
Well, if we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower.
Objection!
But multiple witnesses' reports claim it fell head first. The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage, following a spontaneous explosion, at an altitude of some 60 feet above ground level, which is approximately 18 meters. It then proceeded to fall some 30 feet into the crystal tower in the ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable.
Objection!
But the victim's neck was broken.
Objection!
He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However he fell, it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed. A riveting scientific analysis of events from the prosecution there. Though to be even more rigorous, you would have to say it was only one vertebra, actually. He wasn't quiet for long. I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Van Zeeks. This witness is clearly a swindler, and one who deceived a personal friend of his. If you're going to establish this deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here. Yes, and there's one more point. The defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as a certain truth very plainly demonstrates. What?
It seems to me that the cross-examination had better continue until we resolve the matter. Mr. Trevor, you will amend your testimony with details of this truth.
Of course, we must treat the matter scientifically, after all. I nearly had him there. The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from.
Aha!
Hold it!
What do you mean? Well, before the demonstration began, the victim was alive on stage in front of the audience. Yes, there are lots of witnesses who saw Mr. Asman on the experimentation stage, that's true. And the victim's neck broke as a result of an impact following a fall. Logically, therefore, the victim must have fallen from somewhere. The balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell. And there's no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance if it didn't drop out of the sky. Ergo, the victim himself must have been beamed from the stage into the sky above the crystal tower.
A trenchant scientific analysis. Dear me, every time I hear it explained, it sounds increasingly plausible.
Oh, yes. It's all very well thought out. Certainly all the spectators on the day saw it. The birdcage plummeting 30 feet through the air, I mean. Irritatingly, yes. Alright. This is where I show him my hole.
Objection!
What? The defense would have to object to that last statement, my lord. And I... What? What? I'm angry. How does that not make sense? What? What? Come on! What do you want from me, game? I'm stunned. Here, the platform. It shows the platform is 30 feet above the ground.
Objection!
The difference between this diagram and the photo of the hole in the middle of the platform, that's splitting hairs, man. This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in midair before falling down into the crystal tower. A fall of about 30 feet, or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet. No.
Well, it appears the defense has a possible explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel.
Yes, my lord. Of course.
You will indicate the place to which you are referring on the same diagram. The alternative location from which the birdcage could have possibly have fallen the requisite 30 feet.
Here.
Take that!
The place I'm referring to is here.
But that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with.
Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage. But what we must also consider is the height of the stage itself.
Go on, counsel.
It turns out that the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram, in fact, you'll see it's at about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam. At that moment, the floor of the stage gave way, and if you assume there to be a void underneath, this birdcage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen almost exactly the same distance. Well, that got Enoch upset. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact that there was not one birdcage, but two.
Objection!
My learned friend has no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design. Someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself, it's true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at the photographic print of the scene following yesterday's explosion.
Good lord, the metal grill that formed the floor of the machine is undone.
Yes, most likely blown open by the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately. Mr. Drebber. It was you who built the kinesis machine, which means that it was you who built the 2 bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference, because it's the construction of this machine that matters, a machine designed to take Mr. Asmon's life. And lay the blame firmly at the professor's door, something that could only have been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber. Grr. Uwag.
Objection!
Boy, he's really committed to the bit. If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's arguments slowly, but surely. What? Your argument fails to hold water on 2 counts. 2? Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every relevant member of staff from the exhibition has attested to that.
And I believe members of Scotland Yard have also been on watch duty at every public experiment.
In other words, Mr. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages.
Objection!
But I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to. The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivocal on that point. Ugh. And the second flaw in your assertion is a distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to. A motive? Do I have to think of everything myself? I have here a contract provided by the witness.
What contract is this, Lord Van Zeeks?
The contract into which Mr. Drebber entered with the victim, Mr. Asman. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income.
30%? Certainly very favorable contractual conditions.
But there was one very important provision bolted onto that clause. What provision? Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Mr. Asman's death. The diametric opposite, in fact. Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor a reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggest is nil. Wag!
It seems the defense's assertion was somewhat wide of the mark. Lord Van Zeeks, you will submit the contract as evidence, please.
Let's make sure we look at it. Whoops. Yeah, this is it. The investor, Mr. Odie Asman, hereby enters into contract with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor and materials for the construction of a super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. Yeah. Nothing new to glean, but We have their signatures, at least. Well, I think this might be the best place to call it for now. We're not doing too hot, are we? Down 3 pips of life in one video. And we have the whole trial ahead of ourselves. I don't think there's going to be like a big break or something that'll restore our life in the middle either. Well, no, never say never. I won't give up hope. Hopefully we'll get a second chance here. I admit, in hindsight, it's pretty obvious what I had to do, but not looking at the birdcage completely on me. I don't even remember when it got added to the evidence. Man, is there anything else I haven't looked at but really should? Just to double check. No, we've definitely poured over all this, so we're good going forward. So, from where I'm standing, I actually wonder how Balthazar and Gotts are going to figure into this again, if at all. Like, I wouldn't put it past them. In the previous case, the gas man and the gas lady, the worker bee and the queen bee, rather, they took the witness stand once, and then that was all. Like, once the true culprit was brought forward, we never had to bother with them again. And that might be a similar situation here. Those two got their time in the spotlight, we don't need to see them again. And now the maybe true villain has taken the stand? Like, oh, okay, who am I kidding? We all know Enoch Trevor did it. We all know. It's so obvious. The question then is how to prove him guilty. At some point, we're absolutely going to have to rope in the events of 10 years ago. That means roping in Courtney Scythe. A complicated, bizarre, interconnected web we have ahead of us, one I look forward to untangling bit by bit. I'm Zephyr the Jester. This has been more of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you next time. So until then, please take care.